Hey there, hope you're doing good. Let's continue refactoring Futurecam, starting with this task. Delete camera delegate dot is whatever on. You have these four functions that tell you which camera is on. Is it ultra wide, wide, tele, or front? Which one the user has selected. You don't need, so originally they were implemented as separate functions because multiple could be on. In a time-lapse mode, you could capture with multiple cameras at once, but that feature never worked properly, so we turned it off. Now only one can be on, which means that you don't need 4 accessors plus this helper. 5. Just this will do. So let's make this refactoring. We'll make this the actual one. Delegate dot selected camera. Equal to it's an AV capture device, so you need to compare it with AV capture device. Yeah. I don't like this code, it's messy, but oops. Probably don't need to do this because it's an AV capture device. I never know whether ultra wide has a capital or a small w. Actually, you don't even need this next device for time lapse. But that's an unrelated refactoring. Oh, this should be ultra wide. Wide, tele, wide, then tele front ultra wide, tele front. This will crash unless the same order is maintained. After wide comes tele, then front, then ultra wide. And the same order has to be maintained. After tele, there should be front. Then there should be ultra wide. Then there should be wide. It's like a cycle. Wide, tele, front, ultra wide. Again wide, tele, front, ultra wide. It's like a circular thing. After front comes ultra wide, then tele. Here after ultra wide comes wide, then tele. Yes, this order is maintained. So this is not good code. Anyway. This is optional, so it can have three values: true, false, and nil. So you have to compare it this way, otherwise it won't work for whatever Swift weirdness. And then the same logic, if don't have repetitive functions, classes should have a smaller surface area. Don't have 4 functions if one will do. So this code can be rewritten in two ways. One is we can make this optional and return nil here. I don't like it because now somebody who's invoking this may get a nil. We don't want that. So I'll make it non-optional. Classes can have more complexity internally, but externally they should make it easy for their clients. Like they can take on some complexity to make life easier for clients. For consistency, I'll write all four this way. Oh, this doesn't handle nil properly, so we'll have to work on this. Yeah, actually nil will not compare as equal to false. This won't compare. Will this compare? See, it won't print because nil is not equal to false. So you want to say not equal to true, that's the thing. Selected camera. Yeah, you should never do equal to false or not equal to false. You should only compare with true. Like this may seem weird, but when you have three states, equal to true and not equal to false are not the same. And for consistency, let's do it here also. If all four are not equal to true, which means they're either false or nil, but both are not true for us. Okay, great. Is tele on. This will have more. Oh, how come? Strange. Was it called something else? Is ultra wide on? This is case sensitive. Now it's not. Match whole word. No. We're never using it. Then why are all this there? Something seems wrong here. Let me look at it in GitHub. Oh, I think I fixed all of them. Good. Now let's look at the diffs. This is non-optional. This is optional. This won't. I click compare. The value could be nil, but it's defined on the type AV capture device. So the compiler will look at this type, which is AV capture device. It's not an optional. So it will interpret .tele as AV capture device .tele, irrespective of the data type of this. Will that work? I don't know, man. If it doesn't, we can always fix it. Yes, so now you have one property instead of 5. Delegates are like interfaces between two different classes. They should be minimal. If you look at the highlighting in the diff, it shows very well. This ultra wide on LTRAWIDE is not highlighted, which means I didn't change it. If I had by mistake put front here, the diff would show differently. So you can verify right here. Excuse me. Front, tele, ultra wide, wide. Okay. If none of these are true, which means either nil or false. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure that we are using ultra wide with consistent capitalization of W. Okay, fine. Yeah, capture type, this is a big thing. So originally you had this kind of design. You have a camera, which is the photography code, I'll put it in brackets, and you have the main controller, which is the UI code. Now these two need to communicate. They communicate using a delegate, which is an interface in Java speak. It just defines some functions. It doesn't have instance variables, it's not a class. It's more like an interface between two classes. Now, when it comes to the iOS camera, there are two ways of capturing anything. You can capture photos or videos. And the thing is, you can simulate the other using the first one. You can capture a time-lapse video by taking multiple photos and putting them together into a video. So the input is photos, output is video. Conversely, you can take a video, extract each of the frames from the video and save it as a separate photo. So that is what capture type is. And capture type is a member in camera delegate. here. We even had UI that allowed the user to change this, but we removed it because it was too confusing. Users don't understand the concept of capturing a video by taking photos or capturing a photo by taking a video. It just makes their mind melt. So we removed the UI and we had only a debug UI. We did testing for months and we concluded that certain capture types work well for certain modes. But now that that is the case, we no longer need to have this capture type property in the delegate. You don't need to ask the delegate. Actually, you should probably be asking the mode. Anyway, let's remove this. Okay, so here, instead of the camera, querying the delegate. Maybe the class can be told by its caller. We'll have to change the call side, but output AV capture output, and it will just pass through. Adds the given output to the session and removes the other. Photo output if video data output has been added, and vice versa. Look at the column length here at the bottom right of the screen. That should not go beyond 100. That is a convention that we have followed here, and when you edit code, you should kind of maintain the conventions that are in place. Even if you think 100 character line length doesn't make sense. You don't want inconsistent code where some have unlimited lines and some not. If you're starting a new project, you're entitled to do whatever you want. Maybe you can have unlimited line lengths, but not in this case. Not when editing an existing project. Okay. Yeah, why do we need the capture type here? Oh my god, there's a lot of complexity. So maybe we should do this refactoring step by step. Maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew. First thing is this should move into the mode. Because the mode really is the one that is deciding. Sheesh, this is a bad design. I think the moral of the story is to not use strings as enums, because default is another variable which is initialized to one of these. I think it's initialized to BGRA. So now when you see this code, you have to think, should I return default, should I return BGRA? Anyway, that's a refactoring we should do, but not in this commit. In this commit, what we'll do, we'll define this in the mode. And why do I have blank lines in the initializer? Default makes sense here. Because it's a perfect fit for a base class where you don't know the type that will be used, so that is good. Now these can override. Burst mode can return video. This tells you why. Okay. Long exposure mode. Oops, indentation. I don't know why this is the case. This comment says something. I know I dealt with this problem 2 years back, but I don't know why VDO prevents a laggy viewfinder. This is why these comments are very helpful. You forget things, so at least I know that this ensures that the viewfinder is not lagging. Time-lapse mode. Override var capture type string return this. This round trips back to camera. Ooh, you can't do this. It doesn't have a reference to the mode. I was going to write here mode.capture type because it's in the mode classes. But this doesn't have a reference to the mode. It has a reference to the mode class, not the mode object. So it can know that it's a burst mode, but it can't get a reference to the exact burst mode object. So we'll have to remove this, and this capture type should be moved to camera. whole bunch of junk. I'll just put it somewhere. Var capture type string return mode dot capture type. Now we need to find all the places where we are calling capture type. And instead of mode, we need to use the camera. This is a good refactoring. We are supposed to get rid of capture type. Instead, we moved it into the mode class, which is still one step forward. Because if the mode is deciding it, it should be in the mode. You should never have a switch case based on a class type, because that's an indication that that functionality should be in the class itself. Now we no longer need to call it since it's an instance variable. Let's fix it while we go. We kind of passing a reference to an instance variable is just bad coding. Oh, the device needs to know it. The device doesn't have a reference. Yeah, it's fine. We shouldn't see it here as an argument. That's the only thing. This is in the AV capture device, where we do need to take it as an argument, so it's all good. What this is, I'll just delete it. Yeah, this is all UI code. You know, the selector is being populated with options for the debug UI. Oh, this has an accessor for the capture type? No, it doesn't. Oh. So this code no longer will compile. This will compile. I think we should just remove this hash if it doesn't features. It's easier to have ad hoc changes than to commit this into Git guarded with a hash if. This is the thing that breaks. Since there's a return, I'll be lazy and delete the code instead of fixing it. Yeah, so we have this complex logic here. Heap is considered to be same as BG array but displays differently in the UI. This is what I wanted to fix in this task. Okay, that's okay. We may not finish it here. These are just named constants. Yeah, see, you have this code thrown all over the place. If it were an enum or some kind of structured data type. Or the other way is, you should have a function is capture type equals, which takes two strings and compares them, taking into account that bgra is same as seek. But we have used just like the double equal to operator in some cases, like this here. This needs fixing. Because we have just moved it around to mode, this part got cleaner here. You don't need to ask now we are round tripping. We are asking the camera, which is again asking us. So the mode classes can just use capture type without doing camera.capture type. It's implemented internally. Eventually we should get rid of it because that's an implementation detail of the mode. It shouldn't be exposed. Mode, no, it's not. It's not in the delegate. Okay, let's look at the diffs. Capture type has been added here, and we are no longer invoking the delegate because the delegate no longer knows what the capture type is. Actually, there's a different way of doing it, where let me do it in the online version of VS Code. This link is broken. You have to do this. Open remote repository. Open repository from, oh man. This VS Code online version keeps giving these errors. Where is Futurecam here? Couldn't create connection to whatever, I don't know what that means. Okay, so here what I wanted to open is camera delegate. Okay, I don't care about WebAssembly not working. So the suggestion is in camera delegate, this, no, not camera delegate. Yeah, instead of removing this, okay, so in mode, where is mode? In mode, this can be a class property because all instances of burst mode have the same capture type. All instances of time-lapse mode have the same capture type. So a better design would be to make it class. Come on, syntax highlighting. Class var capture type string, return capture type default, and I had some explanation for why that is the default. String is a bad data type to represent it because I can have anything in a string. I can have this. This is not a valid capture type. I mean, someone won't write such code deliberately, but they may mix up a string from somewhere and assign it by mistake, and the compiler won't help. And you also don't know what it is. Whereas if it is like an enum or something, you can control click in Xcode and it will show you the definition. Then you'll see what the valid values are. Okay. Now each of these should implement this mode. Let's look at burst mode. It will just be override class var now. See, here it says override class var. Similarly, burst mode. Let's put all the class vars together. Are they together here? Yes. This needs documentation. Why did I neglect it? So burst mode, what should it return? Along with its explanation. Long exposure mode should return this. Then you have time-lapse mode. Now in the camera delegate, you can implement this. This comment has been moved to mode. By return current mode type dot capture type. Let's look at the diffs. Camera delegate. So again, the logic is if you are using this comparisons with a class type, especially a switch case kind of thing where you're comparing all of them, then it should be in the class. But even if it is one, you should think about it. Not captured type, it's capture type. So now all the call sets don't need to change. So there are 5 files changed here, whereas in the earlier version there are 8 changed. So don't make unnecessary changes. And actually this should be a class var in the mode, because like I said, different instances of burst mode have the same capture type. It's a constant for a given class. And we use this default. I think this is a perfect case of default. Like if you didn't have this named constant, you would wonder what to return here. So let's make sure we haven't missed anything. Time-lapse mode should be using BGRA. Yes. Long exposure mode should also be using BGRA. Did I mess it up? It should be BGRA. Burst mode should use VDO. Let's double check. Long exposure mode uses BGRA to prevent a laggy viewfinder. Time-lapse mode uses BGRA for better saturation, contrast, and dynamic range. Like, we should eventually remove these meaningless forwarding functions, but for now it's fine. Instead of switch casing on a class name, move capture type to mode. And we are done, and we are going to discard all of these. Don't make unnecessarily big changes. Yes, you often make a commit and then you come up with a better way, which is a smaller diff, and it isn't any worse. So if you are writing the code from scratch, either may have been okay, but now when you are making a change, you should make a smaller change to existing code. Unless the bigger change is a better design, minimize churn in the code. Churn is when you are changing from one to the other for no strong reason. We need to pull from source control, otherwise this will get out of date. Pull. We can't delete this yet because we haven't removed it, but we'll work on it in a future commit. See you in the next